The first question I want to start with is, what do you think are the most concerning issues affecting youth?
Um, that's a good question. I would say that um, the most concerning issues would be probably anxiety and stress, because right now we're all going through this global pandemic, and there's so many things that's piling upon us. Like there's taking care of our mental and emotional health, the consumption of technology, our family. If we have younger siblings that we also have to take care of, there's school, and then also taking care of our like wellness. So I think that we all just have to like watch what we're doing and like take care of ourselves, because these times are especially hard, especially since we don't have like human interaction. Although things are virtual, it's not the same anymore because we don't have that face-to-face interaction with other people now.
How have you seen other teens, other leaders, young people just react to the anxiety and the stress? How is it coming out? Since COVID has started, since virtual school has started, how have you all responded and reacted to that anxiety and stress?
For me personally, what I would do to like keep sane in this time and make sure that everything with me is emotionally and mentally fine, I would set up Zooms with my friends so that there's between one another. Although we're not like face to face talking to each other, it's still good to have that interaction. Because before, like whenever like the pandemic like first hit, it hit me like mentally because usually I would be at school and I would be interacting with people, having conversations, but it's not the same because we don't get that same essence of like having that deep conversation with people through like our human interactions and interacting with one another.
Man, I know one thing that it's easy to take for granted a lot of times is you see young people, you all are so resilient and you're always full of life that the things that are affecting us as adults, things that are happening in the world, affect you all the same. So, Angel, if you can hear me, I know you're in the room right next door to me, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Angel, I wanted to ask you the same question. What do you think are the most pressing issues currently facing our teens right now?
I think the biggest concern right now for teens is virtual learning and getting back into the group of things like having masks on, having new rules, getting back into the swing of like normal being.
So, getting in that swing of normalcy, what do you think happens if we don't address these issues? What do you think happens if we, as leaders, as adults, can't help you all get back into a sense of normalcy?
I think a lot, especially in my community, there will be a whole lot more teens doing underage drinking and getting abused to drugs, things like that.
Yeah, so there's some real consequences there if we can't figure this out, right? And there are a lot of young people who need us to figure this out. How do you think adults perceive young people right now? What do you think are the perceptions? How are you all as teens and young leaders? How do you think adults view you right now?
With everything with the pandemic going on, there's like so many factors that's like pulling us apart. So, in my family, so sometimes my mom, I know that things are stressful right now, and that some things would take like priority over some, but I feel like there needs to be like a barrier established between one another because we talk, but we don't talk on a personal level. Like if it's talking about my mental health or like what I'm going through, there's like no barrier. So I feel like we need to like conversate and have that conversation and talk to one another so that we gain like a better understanding of what we're all going through. And also for us to not like ignore your children's ideas and like push it aside because their ideas and their problems is just as relevant as our ideas too.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. As we look at each other, I know it's so easy to say, "Hey, we're young people. We're not just kids, though, right? We have opinions, we have thoughts and feelings, and to honor that on that level." Angel, before I come to you, I'm going to read a couple out of the chat that we've had that have come through from our group at Eastside. I saw a couple things. Some of our young people feel as adults act as if kids and young teens don't know anything. Cody says he thinks some adults do view us as young leaders, right? So there is a positive in that we are seen that way. And Amani, who's one of our teen ambassadors today, one of her comments was, "I believe adults perceive us as either immature or misguided. We do need access to mentors, good role models, and opportunities. We need guidance, support, and trust us to reach our potential, but not force us to be what you see." And then the last one, that's a very powerful quote there, Amani. And the last one coming from our Eastside group, in this setting, they see us as future leaders, but in other settings, they see us as children, right? So there's that distinction of how you all may be seen in one light that you're the future and you're a leader, but at other times that you're just a child. So how do we right size that? So Angel, I'm going to ask you to bring us home. I'm going to ask one last question, and you have the final word before we go into our breakout. So my question for you, Angel, is this. What do you wish that adults truly understood about teens and young people? So we have what a second ago we asked, what do we think they think about us? What do you want them to understand about us as teens and young leaders?
For me, I would definitely want adults to understand that they need to give us patience. They need to understand that we're learning new things just as much as they are, especially in this pandemic. And I want them to understand that we need them to be there for us and to help us out with things they have gone through and they know the answers to, we're still trying to figure out ourselves. So I feel like it would help us a lot if they could put in their input and just be patient with us as we try to figure ourselves out.
I will tell you why that is such a perfect segue into our breakout sessions, is because when we go into our breakout sessions, that's what we're challenging ourselves to do today. Our young people, along with our adults who are visiting us, is to come up with solutions together, to really hear us as partners on a journey to really make some solves for real issues that are affecting you as our youth leaders. So whether you're at Main Branch today, whether you're here with me in North Fort Worth, or you're with Raquel and Isis and Latoya at our Eastside Club, or whether you're all online virtually, my challenge to us as a group is not only to identify issues, but to walk out today with one or two really big ideas that you want us to work on together in 2021. This conversation is the first step. We're going to have more conversations. We're going to have more planning sessions together. We're going to work together with you as our teen leaders, as well as our adult leaders, coming together to make sure that the changes we say need to happen will actually happen. And that is our commitment as Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Tarrant County, to help each of you see this as not just something we did one time for the fun of it, but something we did to make a lasting change. So your voice today, all of you, Curtis, Chelsea, Amani, Jose, Angel, on down the line, you all have a voice, and I want you to use it today. So when we go into our breakout sessions, everybody's voice is heard. Everybody has a chance to speak up and contribute. Use it, be genuine, be honest, be respectful of one another's views. But at the end of it, challenge us to come up with some great solutions. And when we come back together in our general session, we're going to hear from each of our groups about one or two solutions that we can really start to work on. Our topic and our theme today is about education and how we start to fix challenges that you all are seeing in your classrooms, in your schools, or things that are affecting you in class or school that may be happening outside. But let that be the central driving force, and we'll do some great work today. I'm going to go around to our different facilitators, and I will close us out here with, what you discussed in your room, and what are your big ideas for how we can start to affect change in our communities. So, John, I'm going to come to you and our group at Maine. What do you got?
All right, so a reoccurring theme from this group was they really focused on the emotional challenges that are happening right now with the other teams, with students, and something that we learned, obviously, from our panelists, from our adult panelists, is that they're sharing in some of the same challenges right now too, in their workplaces, and the ability to be able to connect with each other. And as our group here has talked about, that's really important for them, and that helps them with their with their emotions, with their ability to connect and stay strong for each other. And it's hard. We live in a space right now where the thing that they need the most is the thing they often can't have the most right now. So the thing that they believe will affect change the most right now and help them be successful is to have a space where teens and students and youth can talk about these problems, these emotional problems. If they can voice them, they can articulate them, and that it is a safe space, and that it is a judgment-free space, and that it is open, and that there are adults willing to listen. And I think what was really cool about our panelists saying, sharing the same idea that adults can provide that space to listen, but adults aren't always going to have the answers right now, because we're learning the answers every day as they're coming up. And so one thing, to put it in a sentence is, we want an emotionally safe space where we can communicate with adults that are listening to us without fear of being judged. Okay. While maybe not necessarily a physical action in some ways, but in other ways, just having that ability to, for the adults around them, whether, and we talked about it, those adults around them are their teachers, their school officials, their Boys and Girls Club staff, their parents, maybe church members, but just having somebody, because there's a big fear here that the emotional stress could really be detrimental to youth right now. And I think that we all know that to be probably true. And so that is the actionable thing that we would implore the adult community and leaders around us to be able to help provide a successful space for us, for this group.
Hey, shout out to the main group. I love that. And I promise it was echoed over here in our group as well. So shout out to you all over at Main Branch. All right, let's keep it moving. Gene, what about your group? I know you had a all virtual, a little bit of everybody from everywhere. How about yours?
We did, and it was awesome, and I really appreciated the feedback from our team. We actually identified two top concerns, and then they talked a little bit about what they would like to see from this group and to try and figure out how to solve that. First one was just about communication and wanting to know what's expected of us as upfront. And so if that's communication, hearing more from your teachers, hearing more from your parents, hearing more from the community leaders of what do they want from these youth, and then helping them figure out how to schedule that, because we talked a little bit about time management and having how difficult it is right now to do time management, because school did not really prepare you, face-to-face school did not prepare you for this expectation that you have now on how to time manage in a virtual world. There's no bells going off when it's time to move classes and things like that. And so that was one, just communication, and then helping them with that piece of it. And then the other piece of it that we spent a little more time on was access to mentors. And that summation of that is from multiple levels. So how can we provide time, and it kind of piggybacks on what John said, time for them to just talk, engage with adults and engage with adult mentors, and then also give them time to support their own peers through a peer mentoring environment. And then they also asked, how can we maybe help them transfer their knowledge then to younger youth and then solve some of the issues down the line. And I thought that was really bold of them. to bring that challenge to this group of just not saying, here's what we need you adults to do, but we need you adults to also help us make a difference for others. And I thought that was a really good statement to have. And then just allowing for that open dialogue, and then connecting them with resources from that. So they love the idea of bringing in these outside community leaders, movers and shakers, and people that can help teach them new things and provide them resources. And they got on Nikki's list, so they already gave her some tasks of some people. So they're excited for that. And there was one statement that they said is to recognize and have the adults recognize and allow the youth to also recognize that I'm not perfect and you're not perfect either, and it's okay. And I thought that was really a neat statement to
That is awesome, and I know your group was all virtual, and I think we had a couple who were in a club, a couple who were at
East
home,
Ranch, yeah.
adults in a little bit at their own homes. So really cool to pull that together. And I will tell you the themes are consistent. So I hope that whether you're at Main Branch, whether you're at NFW or East Side, you're hearing things that you said in your room as well. So Latoya, Isis, I'm not sure if you've been able to get the share your video part to pop back up. But if not, if you type your big ideas in the chat box, I'll read them in a second. And then if you come back on, I'll give you the mic. But for now, I'll just talk for our team here at North Fort Worth. We had a really phenomenal conversation. And I really love the energy of our group. And you know, two things that I think stood out here. They mentioned the isolation that kids are feeling right now, that families are feeling, and so a lot of what you all touched on in that just social emotional space of needing to feel connected. And so one of those ideas that came up was exactly what John, you talked about with Maine around creating that safe space for connection for kids. But an offshoot of that was really, really fascinating for me. We talked about the lack of access to basic needs resources, but also the number of kids who are not only not engaging back in the classroom and not returning to school, they're not returning to school because the kids and teens are having to work and get involved in the workforce to help support families. And so one of the ideas that came out of that, number one, was increasing the amount of information and resources available to families to know what is out there that they can access in terms of basic needs and support services. But also tied to that was this idea that schools right now are not doing a great job of communicating resources. They're not doing a great job of letting families and kids know what's available. So a role that Boys and Girls Club could play is to help be a connector to share resources to schools and campuses that get disseminated community-wide if we pull them together to make sure they get into the hands of kids and families who really need them. There is a third idea that I think is really brilliant, and it deals with kids who are not accessing schools and not coming back. And it's this idea that kids are working, they may not be able to come back. Can we create an alternate time for them to access and do credit recovery in a mini nester? Can we use, whether it's our facilities or our partners, and work with school districts to create spaces that will allow kids to catch up as a way of maybe getting them back into the mix so that they don't fall further behind. So those were a couple of really great ideas that came from our group here at NFW. So shout out to the great conversation between our adults and our kids here. Because I don't want to be the hog of the mic, Daphne, I will ask if you can see the chat. Do you mind sharing out for Eastside, since we're having some connection issues for them?
Absolutely, Sean. So we've got LaToya letting us know, and I was really lucky to be able to hear some of this conversation. Man, it was like a buzz of feedback over there at Eastside. So at Eastside, they had a great conversation about really some of the challenges in the classroom and some of the challenges around even being able to elevate when something goes wrong. How do you get heard that something's going wrong and get your issue heard and addressed? And the disconnects that are happening inside of the current system. And so some of the ideas here are around identifying bad teachers and mistreatment, around attitudes and not helping. So this idea that there could be a much better approach to how we identify folks that are having a really hard time in the class, in the classroom, meeting the needs of young people. The second idea here that LaToya is sharing with us is that there are challenges with virtual learning, and especially with internet and learning differences, and that there is more support needed to really bridge this gap. The workload and also the deadlines to submit work is hard in a virtual environment. And also, what happens with absences as well. So those are some of the ideas I'm seeing in the chat box from our Eastside group.
Awesome. Thank you, Eastside. Shout out to you all for the great work, the great energy. So here's what it simply boils down to. It's one call to action. Find a way to make a way. If you had an idea, if you had something that you think is an action we need to take, work with us to do that. If you're a young person, keep working with your branch staff, your club staff to get your ideas on the table and show up to these events. Get involved in the teen program. Bring your friends along. If we create the spaces for you to do it, we ask you to come and we will help you make this all come to life. If you are an adult that was in the session, if you were an adult that was in the session, if you heard something that your company, your associations, your professional networks can help with, reach out to us, reach out to Daphne, reach out to myself, any of our staff, Chelsea and Nikki, and we will help you get connected to this work. So the call to action is, don't leave here just having talked about it. Let's do something about it together. Daphne?
All right, so that's a great segue to what comes next. So if we did a lot of talking and didn't put some action behind it, we're just really, being big fakers. So we don't want to be big fakers, right? We want to be real and authentic. So we're going to keep this conversation going. And like Sean said, be sure and connect with us so that you can be part of it. We're also going to create new opportunities throughout 2021 as we talk about different topics. So if there's somebody that's not here with us tonight that you think would love being here, so if you're a young person and you're like, man, I need to hook up my friend because he has got a lot to say, we need him in this conversation, okay? And if you're an adult and you know somebody who's got a lot on their mind right now, and certainly wants to make a difference in the world and has the ability to do it, has some influence and affluence in the world, we need them here to hear what's on the mind of our young people. So plan to include them in our next courageous conversations. Before we depart, though, I also want to just give another huge shout out to Chris Allen and Fast Signs over at North Arlington. So before you hit the leave button, go over to the expo and take it's a really great 60-second video about what his company does. And just to remind everybody, for those of you who are young people in the audience, Chris used to be you. He was a club member, and now it's gone full circle, owns his own business. Man, this is pretty cool, right? To like own your own business, be in charge of your life. And so it's really awesome. We're grateful to you, Chris, for being here and being able to support us in this event and the work that we're doing. All right. Thank you. We hope that you have a safe journey home if you're not already there. And stay safe, mask up, let's keep each other safe, and let's round the corner here and get through the year. As always, I'm so proud of our young people. I'm so proud of you for speaking up and sharing what's on your mind. Again, it's about a courageous conversation, which takes courage. And so I'm really proud of you. And to our adults in the room, thank you for spending some of your evening with us. Thank you also for having the courage to talk about things that aren't always easy. Good night, everybody.